I guess the only reason I'm telling my story here is because the situation I'm in and the steps I'm taking don't let me fully open up to the people close to me. On the 1st of December, I got the news I had been dreading. All the tests confirmed the diagnosis. I have stage 4 pancreatic cancer. So basically, this will be my last holiday season. I'm okay with what's coming. I've made my peace with it. I've had a good life. All my loved ones will be taken care of. I'm naturally a private person, so my wife, Emily, doesn't know about the tests. I didn't want to worry her until I had all the answers. So I headed home early to have the talk. This isn't something I wanted to do over the phone or text. Well, as you can guess since I'm telling this story, my life changed more than once that afternoon. When I got to the house, I noticed the car of one of my business partners in the driveway. There was no mistaking it. Flashy, expensive, with a personalized license plate. To say this was unusual would be an understatement. I pulled up our home camera system on my phone and noticed it was in privacy mode, not recording. I decided to let it be and drove off to my farm property. Now our camera system is for safety, and I never look at it unless there's a concern. That said, I also love watching for wildlife on the outside cameras and find it oddly satisfying to watch storms roll through. For my own enjoyment years ago, I set up a second video recorder to archive the cameras for local storage. That storage isn't accessible via my phone. So when I got to the farm, I opened up my computer and looked at the other server to confirm what my gut was telling me. And sure enough, there they were, snuggling in the living room, drinking wine, dancing, then heading up to the bedroom suite. Apparently, they left the doors open because the microphone recorded their activities after they went out of camera view. This revelation hit me like a freight train. Here I was, ready to have one of the hardest conversations of my life, only to find out that Emily was betraying me in the worst possible way. With my limited time left, I wanted answers, but I didn't want the drama of a confrontation and divorce. Call me what you will, but all of my devotion and love for her left me that afternoon. I went through all the expected emotions. I know I'm not to blame. I've been a loyal, romantic, and attuned partner. Now I'm thinking about myself. I know what's important to me. So I called my lawyer and we reviewed my will and our prenup. I told him what was going on. We worked on understanding how long and to what extent this affair has been happening. What we found was disturbing, and I either never truly knew the woman I shared 2+ decades with, or something in her changed. At this time, I'm not going to say anything to my kids. Emily and I never had children, or to Emily. I'm going to put on a stiff upper lip and get through the holidays. I want to give the kids and grandkids one last holiday memory with me involved. I will be the doting father and grandfather, and then try to play the doting husband role. For some background on the obvious questions, AP, affair partner, is a widower and is not remarried. He is a business partner but not a friend. I don't mix business with friends. I never married my twins' mother, Laura. It was her choice, and I completely agreed with her that at the time, she made the right decision. My kids' mother, Laura, married a very wonderful man, Steve, when the kids were 7. Laura and Steve never had kids of their own. I got my act together when the kids were 3. I had been very involved with them even before that, but that's when I started being the father I wanted to be. Laura and I co-parented well together, and I would call Steve a friend. Laura, Steve, and I are in our 60s. Emily is almost 60, and AP is in his 50s. Emily and I are both in our first marriage. We were in our 30s when we married. What do I need? An outside outlet and release valve. If I'm going to accomplish my goal, I need to vent my anger and talk through my situation. What better outlet than internet strangers? I'm at peace with how and when my life will conclude. This whole mess just adds an ugly layer to what should have been my final months of peace. I never imagined Emily would betray me like this, especially now. The thought of confronting her is unbearable. I don't need that kind of stress when my time is so limited. So I'll keep playing the part, at least until the holidays are over. Then maybe I'll decide how to handle her in this sordid affair. First, I want to thank you all for your support. It really has helped. I've read all your comments, and they've given me a lot to think about. I'm going to provide some general information to help clarify my situation. Laura and I were very young when we had the twins. They were a surprise but always wanted. So the twins are in their 40s, and the grandkids are all teens and older. Christmas is a week-long affair every year. We spend Christmas through New Year on the farm. We cut down a tree after everyone arrives, Then we decorate, cook, play, and celebrate as a family. Laura and Steve have been part of this tradition since I bought the farm. I remain steadfast in not telling anyone until after the new year. If I told Laura, she wouldn't be able to keep it in. I don't want to place Steve in a position to lie to his wife. I want the kids and grandkids to enjoy the week. We will have plenty of time to cry and prepare in a few weeks. Emily's presence this week will just be a small detail in the long run. Honestly, I don't care about her anywhere near as much as the rest of the family. The finances are pretty interesting. Emily and I met and married after we were both very established in our jobs and wealth. She had an excellent job with a great pension and 2 inheritances in a trust. Early on, we agreed we were both comfortable and wouldn't disclose our entire worth to each other, her insistence. We also have a prenup stating that any property and/or trust that predates the marriage and any income from those resources aren't considered marital property, again, at her insistence. I have provided both properties, housing with utilities. I purchased the travel, food, and fuel. Basically, I support her 100%. Her income and wealth are spent on herself. She bought her car, clothes, personal travel, and cosmetic surgery. She's a wonderful woman on the outside, but has shown she's very ugly inside. A few days after I got my diagnosis, I announced my retirement from the nonprofit. Now, knowing what I know, I noticed Emily was a bit uncomfortable. I can guess why. I'll be around more often. Tomorrow is my last day of work, and now I will be focusing on spending time with the family. I gave the camera server info to my lawyer and granted him access from his office. So, I don't know if they've had activities again, but I assume they have. Again, I don't care at this point. I know who I am and what my worth is, and AP is a big step down. As flashy as AP is, I'm low-key. I drive a 15-year-old pickup truck. I like jeans, t-shirts, and coveralls in the winter. I know for a fact that AP doesn't have anywhere near the wealth Emily thinks he does. How? Since the trust has invested in his business, I get quarterly financials. This revelation about Emily has added an extra layer of bitterness to what should be my final peaceful months. I never imagined she would betray me like this, especially now. The thought of confronting her is unbearable, and I don't need that kind of stress when my time is so limited. So I'll keep playing the part, at least until the holidays are over. Then maybe I'll decide how to handle her and this sordid affair. For now, I need this outlet to vent my anger and talk through my situation. I don't tell anyone how much I have. That's between my accountants and me. But let's just say the trust has been growing for 30 years. I live a modest life, and there's enough there for my great-great-grandchildren to enjoy the farm and have their education paid for. Once Emily realizes what she lost, that will be her reckoning. I just won't be around to see it. December really got busy. We did our usual social rounds these last weekends. AP was at one of the parties. It was hard not to keep an eye on Emily and him. I don't think I was caught. With being so busy and wrapping up everything at the job, I've had an easier time keeping it together. Emily hasn't expressed anything that would make me believe she knows I know. I'm not proud of this, but I still sleep in the same bed. I've been selfish with her lately. I feel like I'm using her, but she has been using me for at least the better part of this year. I'm not as honorable as many of you have made me out to be. I hate this small amount of deceit, so don't worry about Emily getting everything because she won't. The trust is in great hands. I have detailed instructions on how it's to be managed. Thanks to the comments, I've made plans in case my health turns for the worse sooner than I want, or if I pass unexpectedly. I've also made plans to have in-home care when it's needed. Emily will not be my caregiver. If I become incapacitated, the lawyer will tell Laura, Steve, and the kids. Emily will be blocked from me. All important papers, valuables, and whatnots have been moved to a safe location. Finally, I've also started letters to each family member and Emily. Those have been harder than I thought, so I wanted to update you all before the festivities start. I might check in during the holiday week, but if I don't, it's planned and expected. I've made peace with my situation. I've always been a private person, so dealing with this alone isn't new to me. But sharing it here has given me some relief, a way to vent my anger and frustration. Knowing Emily's true nature has made it easier to let go of any lingering affection. She's shown her true colors, and they're not pretty. I'll focus on making this last holiday season memorable for my family. They deserve my best, and I'll give it to them. Emily can keep playing her part, oblivious to what's coming. Once the new year begins, I'll set things in motion to ensure she understands the full extent of her betrayal. It's not about revenge. It's about justice and making sure my legacy remains intact for those who truly matter. Thanks again for your support. It's made a difficult time a little bit easier. Mission accomplished. We had a great drama-free holiday week, and I've made it to 2023. I apologize if this offends anyone, but humor about my situation helps me cope. I'm finding that I'm being a bit selfish these days. Everyone dispersed yesterday afternoon. I won't go into detail about my week with my family, because that's something I want to cherish privately. Observations about my wife, Emily, and this past week? I honestly think this is the first time she stepped out on me. Spending the whole week with us seemed to take a toll on her. It's funny how once you know something, a person's actions make more sense. She was secretive about her phone and kept stepping out of our family gatherings to get some air quite a few times. The best part was when she needed to run into town, and one of the grandkids wanted to go with her. She went through such gymnastics to avoid taking the grandkid. I admit, I kind of played with her by asking why not accept them. So the affair is continuing. Now that I'm retired, she's asked about my plans for the day or week. So I tell her, then ask what her plans are. Later this week, I plan to suggest we meet for lunch, pretending I'll be in the same area as her, just to mess with her. I guess it's true what someone said in another post. Unpredictability is a cheater's worst enemy. This morning, I met with my lawyer. I've made some decisions and asked him to draw up papers. I replaced my temporary will with a new permanent one, which has been signed and shouldn't need changing again. In preparation for all hell breaking loose, I had him draw up divorce papers based on the prenup and the evidence of the affair. Emily gets nothing but 25% of our shared assets, which means housewares and furniture. I keep all my liquid assets, retirement funds, and items I purchased with my wealth. Also, if I push it, she's required to pay alimony. I've signed the papers and have a packet created with all our evidence of the affair, holding on to it in case I want to use it. I sold my loan to the trust and will allow the trustees to convert it to shares in the AP's company. Speaking of the trust, I've decided how I want it managed. I'll drop myself to a 1% trustee. The twins, Jack and Lisa, will get the majority of the trusteeship. The 4 grandkids will make up the rest. All of the grandkids' proxies will be Sarah and Steve. As each grandkid turns 24, their trusteeship will move from Sarah and Steve to the grandkid. If a fraction is left over, Sarah gets the extra share/vote/value. I have planned a meeting with the kids, Sarah and Steve, for next week. I plan on telling them everything then. They have to sign documents, and they will want to know why I'm doing this. So when all's said and done, my personal value will be in my liquid assets, personal property, and the money from the AP's loan. Even in the worst-case scenario, Jane will get very little compared to the assets and value in the trust. Over the next couple of weeks, I'll disperse the few personal items I want to go to the kids and grandkids. Those are already stashed away in a safe location where my lawyer has access. Some of you commented on my health. Well, just to be clear, I'm not fighting this. I'm letting nature take its course, so I don't have any ill side effects from any treatments. I did notice this week that I was more easily tired out, and the family noticed too. I just played it off as the old man getting older. The cough is still hanging around. It was my tumors in the lung that led to all of the diagnoses. I've been passing it off as a lingering COVID cough. I expect to go downhill pretty fast once other issues pop up, but by that time everyone will know. And thank you all for your well wishes on that aspect. I'm planning to spend time with the family. A big trip with all of their different obligations would be tough. That's why this week was so important to me. It was the last time I could be with all of them for an extended amount of time. I'm thinking of a small trip for myself. We'll see. I do plan on spending a day one-on-one with each child and grandchild. That's my next goal. The letters aren't done yet. Those are very difficult. I'll let you all know how the meeting next week goes. Best wishes to you all. I had my lawyer, a notary, the twins Emily and Tyler, and Samantha and Brian at my farm today. The tasks I needed were done. This process has gone about as well as it could have gone. Understandably, the family is hurt and angry. When everyone arrived and saw my lawyer and the notary, the tension in the room was high. I asked them to just sit and listen to me, and after I finish, they were to sign the papers. After signing the documents, I will answer all questions. They all know about the trust. I explained to them that it was time for me to release control of their trust. I explained how important the trust was in my life, why I started it, how it was outside of my marriage to Lisa by mutual decision. I also left instructions on how I wanted them to direct and use the trust. We explained that the trust would be split between the twins and the grandchildren, with Emily and Tyler equal proxy votes for the grandkids until they reached the age of 25. Their trust in me was evident because they signed the documents and got them notarized. After that, copies were collated, and I dismissed my lawyer and the notary. I saw them out and thanked them for coming out on a Sunday. They both were gracious as always. When I returned to the dining room, which was acting as a conference room, they were all quiet. My daughter broke the silence with the first question. Well, it was definitely a multi-part question, or a stream of consciousness. As soon as she stopped, I started with my health. I explained the fact of my diagnosis. I listened to them making plans on how we were going to fight this, and this is where I stopped them. I explained the odds. I told them I had already had a second opinion. Then I told them what you all already know. I'm not going to seek treatment. I'm going to let nature take its course. We spent the next hour to an hour and a half arguing. My daughter left the room a few times. Emily had to go get her. While they were gone, Tyler, my son, and I had a heart-to-heart. They understand where I am coming from. They might not agree, but they understand. The consensus is that Emily and my daughter will come around. After all, this calmed down, and I knew the next question was coming. When did I find out? And I told them. And now there was another round of anger and sadness. I explained that I wanted one more holiday week where I was not a dead man walking, that I was selfish. I wanted this diagnosis to be after the holidays. I don't want it to taint their holidays for the rest of their lives. My daughter, sensing there was still more, went all police detective. She was not going to leave the room until all were out. She asked how in the hell did Lisa not tell her? That is when I dropped the last bomb. I told them exactly the same account of events that I did in my first post. That is the first time I truly saw the fire of anger in my daughter's eyes. I then told them she, to this day, does not know I know. I answered the same questions, plots, etc. that you all suggested. So I guess you all prepped me well. Ultimately, I told them I valued them way more than Jane. For me, I just want to spend the rest of my days in peace, not worrying about Jane. I had to explain my actions during the holiday week. They also pieced her steps outside for air and the trip into town, where she did not want to bring the grandkid. They were worried I did this all alone. I told them I had some social media friends who helped me through the roughest of this time. I refused to tell them where and how. They can learn later, but I still want this space for myself. The emotions were really raw, and we have been talking off and on as a group for a few hours. But I told them I needed to go back and talk about the trust. They understand that the trust will be very helpful in not allowing Jane to obtain my hard-earned wealth, that it protects them, and that is why she is not part of this meeting. With that said, I then needed to share the financials of the trust. I am pretty sure that they all saw the trust as a tax dodge, or just a way to protect assets in a marriage where the kids are from another woman. They were not prepared for me to share the finances. As I started to go through the assets and the balance sheets, the room just fell silent. Then there was one question. Why did you work so hard those years when you had this much? I explained my philosophy of personal finance, something they have heard many times before and take to heart. But I told them that I lived off the trust all of these years. I put them through college with that trust. I made time in my life for them with that trust, and I was able to work for a nonprofit for basically free because of that trust. And if there is any example I want to outlive in them and their children, it is to use this trust to do better for others. And not just to write a check for a charity here and there, but to work for something they believe in. In my years with this nonprofit, I have done so much more in training others and building relationships than just writing a check cannot do. I am not happy that today, everyone's lives at that table changed in so many ways, good and bad, because of me. It was not the way I wanted it to happen. But it is done. They know all of it. I have begged and pleaded that they let me deal with Jane, not to talk about the trust with anyone. We will run as status quo for now. When I get sicker, then things will change. They all have agreed. We spent the next few hours making a meal, talking, crying, laughing, and breaking into smaller groups. They all have left about an hour ago. But I expect the twins to come back. I know they will let their spouses in on what is going on. That is just the way they are. And I love my two in-laws' children very much. I knew that last night was my last quiet night. I feel a weight lifted, but replaced with another weight of worry. Thank you all for reading. Your thoughts and prayers are so valuable to me. Again, tell your loved ones how you feel and give them a hug. Just got hit with an unexpected visit from one of my wife's pals. She goes by Carol, who is around the same age as my wife, who we'll call Sarah now. They had a wild night out last week at Carol's pad. Sarah stumbled back home hammered. Thank God she had the sense to use a rideshare. The funny thing is, Carol and Sarah go way back, and Sarah conveniently forgot that I introduced them ages ago. Small world, right? It turns out that Carol's folks were tight with mine. Now I reckon my own quirks might have played a part in Sarah's recent mood swings, and during their girls' night last week, Sarah hit a breaking point. She spilled her guts to Carol, blabbing about her little fling. Carol tried to shut her up, but Sarah kept yapping, defending herself, and spilling more beans than a clumsy chef. Next day, Carol hits up Sarah, who's playing dumb like she drew a blank on the whole thing. Carol lays it out, and Sarah denies it all, calling Carol confused. Carol, bless her heart, ain't buying it and gives Sarah a week to come clean, or she'll spill the beans herself. And that's how I ended up having coffee with Carol. Carol thought I'd be crushed, but surprise, surprise, I was already in the loop. I asked her who else heard Sarah's confession, and turns out it was just them too. I had to make sure Carol wasn't spreading this all over town, and she reassured me she's got more sense than that. Apologized for doubting her, explained I had my own timeline for dealing with Sarah's mess. Carol got it. I asked her to keep quiet and let Sarah think she's fooled us. She agreed, but wasn't too keen on the idea. Fair enough. I'll have to apologize again once she learns about my health issue, but that's a bridge for another day. Tomorrow's D-Day. Sarah and I got our regular date night, and I'm planning to drop the bomb then. Lay out what I know, drop the health bomb, and tell her I'm out, hoping the public setting will keep things civil. Whether it's smooth sailing or a train wreck, I'll fill you in this weekend. After the showdown, I'm cutting her off, asking her to stay away from me and my folks. Let's see how this plays out. I remember what Mike Tyson said once. Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. That line hits close to home now. Plans don't always pan out the way you expect, do they? Let me lay out the scene for you. It's about me and Jane, my wife. We have this weekly routine, a date night every Friday, always at the same joint. We've practically owned a table there, tucked away in the back, where the vibe's more chilled out, away from the noisy bar scene. I figured that'd be the spot to lay it all out, to confront her. So I made some arrangements, got our lawyer and his missus to book a table for the same time as us, slipped some cash to our regular server beforehand, the one who's seen us through thick and thin over the years. Had Carol, a good friend, on standby to lend a hand to Jane after I split. The plan? Wrap up dinner, have a heart-to-heart about our marriage, record it for good measure, then drop the bomb on her. Spill about what I know, drop the D word, and hand her a letter telling her to stay clear of me and my kinfolk, along with a briefcase of evidence and divorce papers. Then I'd bounce, expecting her to keep it low-key to save face. I hit record of the conversation as we dug into the desert. Jane was all lovey-dovey, talking up our relationship like it was some fairy tale. I played along, asking her if I'd treated her right, never mistreated her, all that jazz. Of course she says I'm golden. Then I hit her with the big question. Why'd she cheat? She tries to play innocent, saying Carol must have fed me lies, but I dropped the bomb I knew beforehand. That's when her poker face crumbles, and she's left stammering, asking, what? I shut her down, telling her to let me finish, and she nods, looking like a deer caught in headlights. I spill about coming home after a doctor's appointment, hoping to share my news with her, only to find her ride parked outside and the security cameras on the fritz. I spill about my diagnosis, my decision not to fight it, and the rage bubbling up inside me as I spill it all out. Then I signal the waitress over, who fetches our lawyer. They come over and I'm handed a briefcase and a letter. I make her watch as I sign the letter, then pass it to her to sign, with the waitress as our witness. Once that's done, I drop the bomb about the divorce papers and how I'm bouncing to the farm, leaving her to pick up the pieces. I don't want to hear her excuses. I'm out. I thank the waitress generously, apologize to the owner for the drama, and make a beeline for the door where my son and Carol are waiting. Carol's got this look of concern as she passed me, but I've got no time to dwell. My son drives me to the farm, and we call it a night. The family drops by the next day to check in on me, which feels a bit suffocating, but I roll with it. Then Carol swings by, saying Jane's fallen apart, and get this, reached out to her fling on Saturday. Carol's worried, thinks maybe if I talk to Jane, it'll give her the strength to keep her out of my life. She's good at framing her requests, that one. I reluctantly agreed to a sit-down at the farm with Jane, giving her 2 hours to hash things out. We each got to bring a wingman. I opted for my daughter while Jane roped in Carol, probably for some damage control, though I couldn't figure out why. The goal was a civil chat. No finger-pointing or shifting blame, just sorting out how to move on. The meetup went down this morning, and let me tell you, it was a doozy. Jane's all teary-eyed, apologizing, trying to downplay her fling. But I wasn't buying it. I laid down the law. She'll have a roof over her head till I kick the bucket. Then it's up to the trustees. No slice of my estate or trust for her, but she's got her own cushy pension and trust fund, so she'll survive. She had the nerve to ask why I wasn't fighting for us. Nearly lost my cool there, but I kept it together and just told her plain, I just don't care about you or us anymore. That hit her hard. Now, here's where I got to vent. This is the mindset of a selfish cheater, only thinking about themselves. Even after wrecking someone's life, they expect them to fight for them. Screw that noise. I wasn't worth fighting for when she was chasing her desires, so screw her. Sorry, had to get that off my chest. She got the answer she wanted, but probably didn't like what she heard. I'm done with these meetings. They're just dragging me away from what I need to do. Jane and Carol split, but Carol swings back a couple hours later for a chat. Turns out, Jane's fling got served by the trustees, who want to convert his loan into shares and do a full audit. My daughter, the MBA whiz, wasted no time. And get this, when Jane went crawling to him, she realized he was just using her to get at the loan I sold to the trust. She spilled to Carol that her trust funds tapped out, and she thought living it up with him was better than with me. He thinks his net worth's bigger than mine just because he flashes fancy cars and fine dining while I'm out on the farm, rolling in an old truck. Disgusting how shallow and greedy she is. I'm glad I found out now. Spared my family from dealing with her later. Then Carol drops a bombshell, offers to keep me company now that I'm free. I'm like, why bother with my diagnosis and all? She reckons just because Jane's a fool doesn't mean other ladies wouldn't line up to spend time with me, appreciating what time I got left. But I'm not keen on complicating my life with that right now. Left out a bunch, but those are the highlights. Holding up okay? Considering. Need some peace and quiet for a bit. Soon enough, the gossip mill will churn out news of both my marriage tanking and my diagnosis. Cue the flood of well-wishers. Can't put it off forever, I suppose. Life's just gotta roll on. Time to rustle up some grub and unwind. Thanks again for all the support. I'll try to catch up on all the messages soon. They mean a lot to me. First off, I'm hanging in there. Still breathing, walking, and every day on my feet feels like a win. The cough's acting up a bit, feeling more winded than usual, but overall, not too shabby. Let's dive into Jane's situation. She's gone off the grid, her reputation in tatters. Once word got out, she got the boot from all her leadership gigs, and her social circles gave her the cold shoulder, straight up accusing her of chasing their hubbies. She's tried reaching out a few times, but I've been giving her the silent treatment. A couple of messages got relayed through friends, but I just told them I've said my piece, know what I need to, and frankly, I couldn't care less about her need for closure. Why should I worry about her selfish whims when she knows exactly where I stand? Now, onto the sordid details of her affair. Been going on for at least half a year. 3 trips together playing make-believe, from newlyweds to celebrating fake anniversaries. She used my house because it was convenient and discreet, and even bought herself a second ride to cover her tracks. Swapped cars at the drop of a hat so nobody would catch on. Her actions speak louder than words, solidifying my feelings about the whole mess. No regrets about how I handled things. It seems Jane spilled her guts on Carol after the heat turned up on her. When news of my sale of her fling's loan hit, he started backing off. The pressure got to her, so she drowned her sorrows and let it all out. Typical. Turns out, her fling had ulterior motives all along. Doesn't make Jane any less pathetic, though. He wanted her help with his loan. She wanted a taste of the high life. Ugly people attracting each other, ain't it a trip? And sorry to all the reconciliation hopefuls out there, but that ain't my style. Her fling's none too pleased with my daughter's plans, trying to squash him in court. More money down the drain for him. Rumor has it he's scrambling to raise funds, but word's already spreading about his shady dealings. You invest in people, not companies, and there ain't many lining up to invest in him. Family time's been a godsend. I caught a high school game with the clan and had a poker night with the boys, reminiscing and shooting the breeze. I had Carol over for dinner one night and kept her at arm's length, though. Still ain't ready to let her back in. Farm chores keep me grounded. Checking fences, tending to the critters, making sure everything's running smooth. Knowing it'll stay in the family brings me peace. A piece of me will live on here long after I'm gone. Been having friends drop by, like a living wake. I'm all for it, soaking up every moment with them. Their support means the world, so thanks to all for having my back. It makes a world of difference.